Thank you very much for inviting me to contribute to this wonderful symposium. I am happy to also show you the perspective of the city of Vienna. As Anja already told you, the co-housing always has to be seen against the background of the local circumstances, and Vienna has a very long tradition in social housing and affordable housing also. So the motives or the motivation to do co-housing are a bit different maybe than in other cities like Berlin or Zurich. I want to introduce to you the Wohnprojekt Wien, a co-housing project that was finished in 2013, and it was our first co-housing project and one of the biggest co-housing projects in the 21st century that was in Vienna. Yeah, so let me start with a short introduction. Co-housing, what does it mean? There are many different models, we saw it today, but from individual ownership to cooperatives. But I think what they all have in common and what is important is that co-housing projects are co-initiated and co-created by the future users, and they share two major goals. One is to build together and or live together. So not all projects involve these community aspects, but in Vienna the community aspect is very important to live together. What makes these projects different is the development of these projects, the process. So I want to show first, before I come to the facts, the genesis of such a project. And on the example of Wohnprojekt Wien. And like every project, it started with the dream of one single person. We all know it. We have a lot of dreams, but not all of them come true. There is an alternative method for project development, and its founder says that only 1 of 1,000 dreams come true, so very bad rate. So what should you do if you have a good idea? The first thing is to share it, to talk about it, to not keep it in your mind. Just go and talk about it with friends, with people you meet. And Heinz Feldmann, the initiator you saw before, did it and shared his idea of living together in a sustainable way in the city. And after a short period, there were 15 to 20 people starting to plan together on their idea of how they want to live together. And they not only planned, but what is also important for such projects is that they created a vision together. So out of these single dreams they all had in their minds, they created a vision that would guide them throughout the project. And in case of Wohnprojekt Wien, in short, it said they wanted individuality within community. So these two aspects we already discussed also today. They wanted to do this in a communicative architecture, and from the beginning they also had the aim to do this as a nucleus of sustainability within the city. What always is a sticking point for co-housing projects is to find a site. And as Wohnprojekt Wien, they wanted to be a sustainable project, they wanted to be central, it had to be affordable, and they wanted to find it within a lifetime, which is not easy, also in Vienna. And so we had to find a way how we can do it within the circumstances of the market in Vienna. And at that time, and we as architects suggested that we can do it in cooperation. So we do not have to do it totally out of the market. And at that time there was a competition for subsidized housing on the former Northern Railway Station in Vienna. And we suggested that the group should cooperate with an investor, because the city of Vienna, when they do subsidized housing, they give the plots to developers that are not allowed to make profit, but they build the projects for the city. And as a private organization, you're not allowed to take part in these competitions. So it was important to make a cooperation and to find an investor that would be open for such a cooperation. And in case of Wohnprojekt Wien, we found the Schwarzetal, old cooperation, but that wanted to be more innovative and start building new buildings in Vienna, which they did not do up to that time. And we also had a big team guiding through the project, because the site for which we were applying was a bigger site. You see, is it working? Yeah. This was the site, and 2 blocks are actually on this site, and one is a normal subsidized housing, and the second one was for the group for the Wohnprojekt Wien, and we developed it together at the same time. So we had 6 weeks within the competition to find the major layout for the project with these 15 people, and that's what we delivered for the competition, and fortunately we could win. So the first time in Vienna actually a group could win such a competition, and the first thing we did, we had a big celebration, which is also very important for successful projects. John Croft also says, if you want to be successful in alternative projects, you should invest 25% of your time and budget to celebrating, to not lose energy. And celebrating is not only having parties, is one part, but also it's about reflection and discussing together and appreciating what you did. Then the group had to grow, because it was 15 people that started the project, and by getting the site, they knew they had to fill up the whole house, which was laid out for 40 apartments. So what they first did is they made info meetings, they spread the idea over several channels, and more than 200 people actually were interested to move in. And so after a long process of how they discussed how to should enlarge the group, and after this process there was a group of 50 adults. It was about 70% of the total group that is now living there. And with this group we started the participatory planning process. And yeah, this is very important. Then when we start projects, we do this with a very, this participation from the urban plan to the electric sockets, actually we say. So everybody can be involved in the whole process. We do this on 3 levels. The first level is the individual planning. So everybody who's moving into the project can design his or her flat with us in 2 sessions. And for instance, for Wohnprojekt Wien with 40 apartments, this meant 80 sessions of planning in 2 months. So it's a lot of time that you spend. And when you start it as an architect, you should think of how to organize it before you start. And the second level of participation is a working group working with us on the general layout, on the community spaces, and on all the details. Actually, they are involved in every decision made on the house. And then there is a third level of participation where we involve the whole group. So for very important topics, like for the community spaces, or for instance for the contribution of the flats, because normally people, when they join the association, they don't know where they're going to live in the house. So after planning the general spaces and the community spaces, they start to plan their house, and the first step is the contribution of the flats. So they do it together. And this is also very important, of course, for the community feeling in such a project. And now, when people are visiting, this is a photo from how it looks today, the average visitor asks us, how can it work with so many people playing together? And they know it from the projects of the 70s, these endless discussions and arguing all the time, and not everybody has so much time. So one very important aspect for such project is the organization. And for our projects, we chose the sociocracy. It's an organization form. Actually, it was founded by a Dutch guy, and it's based on working groups. So the whole project is organized in working groups to the most important topics of the project, and everybody can go to each working group. So if you want, you can take part in the whole project, but it's a question of time. And there are always 2 delegates in each group, and those delegates, they go to the big circle. And this circle is not making the decisions. The decisions are made within the group, the working group, but it's to coordinate between these groups. And it's also a method not only for organizing the work, but also for how to make decisions. I heard it already at Mietshäuser-Syndikat. It's not about the majority, that is, but it's about a consent system. So one person can stop every decision. And it's also a model for how you vote the delegates and so on. So it's a very good tool that helped a lot. And what I wanted to point out is when you work together for 3 years, 50 people, you get an amazing amount of time budget in such projects. And that's why you can reach much more than with conservative housing projects. And when 50 people work together for 3 years, this meant for the Wohnprojekt Wien that we had this amazing budget of 24,000 hours being invested in one project. And they had this rule that everybody had to contribute 10 hours per month. So that's how this budget was filled, actually. So this brings me now to the project itself, to the architecture and the facts. Actually, that's what the project looks today. It's an 8-story building. It's in the center. It's in the 2nd district of Vienna. This is from the backyard. Today, there live 67 adults and 33 children, always getting more, so it's really encouraging people to get children, actually. It's about 100 people living in 39 apartments organized around a central hallway with air spaces so that they connect over the levels. And as I told you, each apartment looks different, so the flats are planned in an individual way. From 35 square meters we have flats to 150 square meters, for instance, student shared flat, but we also have shared flats for older people. So all kind of living spaces. What is important, also already was shown on the Berlin project, is to have a flexible system within such projects so that participation also on the planning level is possible. So we have bearing walls around the central hallway, we have bearing outside walls, but the partition walls, the windows, the situation of the balconies, and the inner layout of the flats are all flexible, so everybody can have his or her own apartment layout, and also over time you can change the layout of the flats. It is not only a housing project, it's also was goal to have a mixed use. So there are 350 square meters of office and commerce. There is a grocery store at the corner run by 8 inhabitants actually of the project. And for instance, we have our office there, and there's also a physician and other facilities within the project. So many people also working there. But what is maybe the heart of the project is the community spaces, and in Wohnprojekt Wien we have a quite high amount of community space. We have 700 square meters, and this was actually possible because we did not have to build so many parking lots, because there's a car sharing and there's a certain subsidy where you can do it. So this is the event space in the basement, and it's enlightened by courtyard, and that's how you can get much more community space without taking the maybe more precious places of the house that are better for living. Also in the basement we have a workshop, so it's for sharing items and to do all kind of works with wood and metal, so all the things you need are there. There's a big community kitchen, so every apartment has its own kitchen, but the community kitchen allows to have a party. It allows to keep your kitchen maybe a bit small, because when you have guests, you can invite them to the big kitchen. And it also allows for the people that work there, like us, like our office, or for people with children that stay at home during the day, to have lunch together, which we do every day. Here you see one good picture for the communicative architecture. So there are air spaces that connect these different community spaces. You see the children playroom. When you look through, you see the community kitchen, and when you look down, you see the event space. And this was actually also wished by the people designing with us, by the families especially. They said, yes, we want to see our children, but we don't have to hear them all the time. And one thing discussed just before is that the best part of the house, and this is also very important, I think, for such projects, should be for the community. So the whole rooftop in Wohnprojekt Wien is a community space. They share a sauna and a mediation room there. They share a library, and they also share guest apartments. And for instance, in one of these guest apartments, there now are living refugees. So it also gives you space for solidarity, which you normally don't have in normal housing projects. And one has to say that such projects are going far beyond only architecture or living. They always also include other aspects of daily life, for instance, mobility. And as the project wanted to be sustainable, they have a very big bicycle garage in the ground floor with lights. You can move in directly, and everybody really has his own space there. They also share cargo bikes and a workshop for bikes. And as I told you before, they also share their cars. We have 6 cars for 40 apartments by a platform, car sharing 24/7. It's now organized with private cars, and it should be renewed time after time with electric cars that they will buy together. It also includes thoughts about food. How can you get healthy biological food within the city? You can grow it yourself in the garden, but there's also a food co-op, a CSA membership, so they also buy vegetables together and bring them to the city. And as already mentioned also today, these projects are not, if you are part of this project, you don't own your flat personally, but the association owns the whole house, and when you move out, you give back your flat to the association. So this, on the one hand, prevents speculation, and on the other hand, gives the association the opportunity to determine who is moving in and to keep the vision and to keep the ideas of the community. Yeah, so what was important for the group and what actually also is special about the project or co-housing in general is the sustainability aspects. And Wohnprojekt Wien won many prizes, not only in architecture, but also on social design, on mobility, and also architecture. But what makes the project so special is not that it's the best energy efficient building ever built. There are better examples, but it takes in consideration all aspects of sustainability, so the environmental, the economical, and the social aspects, and contributes to all of them. I just made a list of examples for the ecological sustainability aspect. So we are nearly passive house. We have a controlled domestic ventilation. There's also photovoltaic on the rooftop, and so on. And I already talked about the economic aspects, like this shared ownership. also, we heard today that in such project with so many community spaces, you can live in a very compact flat because you have these other spaces that you can use. So in Wohnprojekt Wien, we have 32 square meters per person, which is much lower than the average in Austria, which is at 42, I think, at the moment. But as you see, it's higher than here in Slovenia, as I heard. But even if we take the community spaces in consideration, it's 35 square meters per person, so it's very compact. It's these flexible structures that make it economic, and also the aspect of sharing. And I want to point out one detail by this sharing aspect, and this is what it means to build for 6 instead of 40 cars. We figured it out. It means that we saved money because we did not have to build these parking lots. If you save 15,000 euros per parking lot, we were able to save €500,000 actually in the project, and we were able to save 800 square meters of space. And this, of course, was reinvested partly in the community and in the sustainability of the project. And the social sustainability, of course, is inherent in this project. It's about the participation, it's about neighborly assistance, self-administration is very important, and solidarity is also an important aspect. Yeah, so now after 3 years, we finished the project in 2013. After 3 years living there, we asked the people, these were the facts now, but we asked the people, what is your personal experience after 3 years? What makes the biggest difference for you living in such a project? And we got really amazing and really nice answers, and I want to present just some of them. For instance, there's Heinz Feldman, the initiator of the project, and when we asked him what was for you the biggest change, he said, well, I was living on 80 square meters, I had a Mercedes. Now I'm living in 35 square meters. I sold my Mercedes, but I can use 6 cars and even a cargo bike. So actually sharing really makes sense to me. We asked Petra, for instance, she was planning with us her flat, and at one moment she said, wow, that's really bad. Now, if I'm not satisfied with my apartment, I'm responsible, you know, I cannot blame the architect. So this is also an important aspect, I think, that by planning together with the people, they get a deeper insight in planning processes, in architecture. They take over responsibility, and they are not victims anymore of a top-down realization. Another aspect is, for instance, the lunch we have today, each day in the project. And Lizzie, she's living there alone with her little boy. And for her as a mother, as a young mother, it really makes sense to share the cooking. So she's cooking once a month and getting a warm lunch for €3, vegetarian, every day. So this really makes sense to her, and this is a picture of how we share lunch every day in the community kitchen. Another aspect from a young retiree, Veronica, she moved to the project together with her son in separate apartments. And she said, and she's also working in the grocery store and cafe in the corner. And she says, so many of my friends complain about loneliness, about not knowing what to do the whole day. And in this project, this cannot happen to her. She has always something to do. She started a cafe, which she never thought she would do on her own. And she really sees these social aspects that make it so interesting for her. And in the end, Michaela, she moved in mainly because of the solidarity she can live within this project. It's about small things like a friendly ear, about childcare and sick bed visits, but it's also the big solidarity. For instance, there are 2 flats that are supported by the community, and they also support initiatives in the neighborhood by flea markets and so on. So for her it is important to actually share these things, this good life with others, and to have the feeling that you're part, with this project, you're always part of the whole. You're not only individual, you're also community, but you're also part of the city. So in short, if I want to summarize, the potentials for the individual is life in a social community, is vital supporting neighborhood, is simplify your life by sharing resources, sharing spaces, and co-creating your living environment, so this participation. And just in short, I want to show some, I think I have some more time, to show further co-housings in Vienna. After Wohnprojekt Wien, actually we did more projects. Actually, we can say there is a movement now, there's a lively scene for co-housing projects at the moment. This growing interest was also was asked for in 2 surveys made, one in 2009, where only 5% of the people asked could imagine to live or to start such a project, such a co-housing project. But in 2014, the question was a bit different, but already 39% of the asked people said that they could think of, or they could, they would like to live in such a co-housing project. So we can say there's really growing interest in Vienna, in Austria. And this happens against the background of social aspects that we have to take in consideration today. This is in German, sorry for that, but it's all things that have been mentioned already today. It's about the lack of solidarity in our societies. It's about the instability of the social surroundings, family structures are dissolving, and also loneliness in a digital age. And it's also the lack of long-term thinking in politics and economics. So that's what people drives into such projects, and mostly when they come to us, some of them don't know what they want, but they know for sure what they do not want, and this is to live in these anonymous housing blocks. They do not go to the suburbs because they cannot afford to live within the city. But they also do not want to work a lifetime for a housing dream that they actually cannot afford. And they have these vague ideas of a roof terrace within the city, mixed community they want to share. And they also want to have a flat that really fits their needs, like the Baba Baba house. I think it's a perfect example for that. And not only the individual, not only the private people realize that such models or cooperatives, co-housing projects are a chance for them, but also the city of Vienna realized that these projects can bring advantages for new urban developments. And for the first time in Seestadt Aspern, a big urban development on the periphery of Vienna, actually the biggest we have at the moment, the city reserved a site for co-housing projects. So for the first time, private groups of people could apply directly for the site, not they did not have to cooperate with the developer. And for the first time, 5 groups were arranged around one central courtyard. So in total, it's about 150 flats of co-housing projects around a central courtyard. One of them is Seestadt Aspern. It's actually quite similar to Wohnprojekt Wien, a bit smaller, but with the surrounding projects, it's much bigger. And they also not only discussed about their houses, about their flats, which are individual again, but they also discussed about the connecting spaces, the free spaces, and a small part of this new urban development was done in a participatory way, which I think makes also a big difference. One more aspect from a member of this co-housing group, Louise. She's a photographer, and she actually documented the whole building process. And she was starting to take pics of the workers there. And first they were shy and they didn't know how to react. But after a while, they really presented in a very proud way. So, and actually, what they wanted is they wanted to know them by name also. So they learned all the names. And for the big party, when it was finished, they knew each other. Even personally. And I think it's an important example also to show that it's about appreciating the work the workers do. It's about also a different level of social communication in our anonymous working world. Another project we just under construction or will be finished in 2018. It's an example also for co-housing where the site was reserved for a co-housing project, so we applied with the group. And in this case, the city not only gave the site to the co-housing, hoping that they will develop something also for the city, but they said the whole ground floor has to contribute to the public life. So in this project, the whole ground floor is public, actually, and the community spaces are on the rooftop, so this is also a possibility for the city, to ask something for the surroundings, for the urban development. We do not only do projects in Vienna, we now also have a project in the countryside, about 1 hour from Vienna. It's a rural co-housing, and they also have agricultural land. This is the group, just to show that it's not only an urban thing, you can also do it in smaller cities or smaller sites outside the city. Yeah, so as I told you, we often cooperate with developers. I just wanted to show that it's not only, if you don't have the money, if you don't have the sites, you should also look for cooperatives that could help the idea. So maybe make some compromises, but I think it's more important to get some projects into life, and then you can develop it step by step. So what we said to the developers is that with this co-housing, they could access to a new and growing market. They could reduce their marketing costs. They could have a higher identification of the dwellers. They could realize in an easier way mixed use, and also raise their reputation. And for politics, it is important to know that these projects are fortifying democratic skills. They are upgrading the surroundings. What you get is local social networks. They also have a higher potential for integration, because a community can integrate in another way than just single families or people. It is a potential for sustainability, and it's really an alternative to urban sprawl. And that's actually, I want to stop with that one, because that's actually what brought us as office to this topic. We started, like many small offices, young offices, with single detached houses. And what we liked about it is that we were working with the people, that we could have these very individual aspects in the project, but we all knew that on the urban scale, on the bigger scale, this is not the way we can all live, or this is not sustainable. It's the resources, it's about the mobility, about the land use. We cannot do that, and we do not want to do that on the long term. Also, what already has been said today, there's an increase of single households. Family structures are really only a small percentage, so one family house is not the solution. On the other hand, we had these bigger projects we did in the compact city. This is a photo of the inner city of Vienna, which is, of course, on the urban scale very sustainable. You have short distances, you have a good use of land, but on the individual aspect, as I showed you, it's not that fulfilling. And we thought as an office, how can we bring these two aspects together, the individuality and the sustainability? So that's when we started to do co-housing projects. And we also said, okay, if we do such projects, it's not only about facts. You cannot convince politics or developers with facts, but you have to correspond to the heart of the people. You have to have a different access to why they should do it. Because what I learned in a lecture some month ago actually is that our center of knowledge in the brain and the center that determines what we do is not connected at all. So that's very problematic. So that's why often we do not do reasonable things. So I think what we have to address is the heart, as already said before, and what we wanted to reach was more love per square meter and not more money, not more space, but just love per square meter. So I think that's the point where you should start such projects and where you should come back to. Thank you very much.
One comment. I think in this case, love is not for free. So I'm interested in how much was your project per square meters? How many euros?
For the user.
For the users.
The rent. Yeah.
Yes, because I see from my point of view, or from Slovenian point of view, the project was quite rich. So I'm also wondering what was the social background of the people involved.
It was a subsidized housing, so there are cost limits. So you have to develop this project within cost limits. And there was a cooperative share of 580 euros per square meter people had to give, and also a monthly rent of 9.70 euros per square meter. So compared with other subsidized housing, it was a bit not the cheapest subsidized housing, but compared to the free market, it actually is quite affordable, very affordable still. And you also have to say that you have the solidarity fund, so also allowing other people without this capital, for instance, to move in. But you have to say if you build a new house, actually it costs money. You cannot do it without money. You have to have the money. And I think for the poor people, you also have to see that co-housing is not a solution, or is not a state thing. I think it's a private thing. I think the state is responsible for the really poor people, but we can contribute something for the solidarity in such projects. And also now we are discussing with politics how we can find a model for co-housing within the subsidized housing that it's a fair deal for the city, for the people, and also for the people that live here.
How the people that are involved are they over the average salary in Austria, or?
No. They are, I think, I would say quite average people, average income. It's a very mixed group also, so there are no income limits. Some people have more, and they can also contribute more. It's also kind of solidarity. They can give more money to the project. And they also have an alternative, they have a bank finance, but they also have a second alternative finance where also people from outside can contribute to such projects. They give their money and they don't get no interest. They don't get interest, and that also makes it more affordable for more people. So.
I would already like to start with a little conclusion, maybe. Looking at our presentation, I find quite interesting that in Vienna and Zurich, like both places where you have actually a very strong history, like kind of historical interventions into housing markets, which dates basically back already to the 20s. Which actually in some way already also had in Berlin, but in this kind of post-socialist condition, actually, in the 1990s and 2000s. A lot of these public resources were privatized, and also some incredible neoliberal thinking destroyed a lot of these public resources. This is why I think we see it in Berlin, a lot of these small-scale initiatives. But what we are really thinking about now in Berlin is basically how to reunite this kind of bottom-up initiatives with kind of more larger scale public resources, because we still have some public housing corporations in Berlin which actually are still the biggest owner of flats in Berlin. And I think it's also our main goal is basically to kind of stop this kind of heated up market and bring back a kind of housing sector, to provide basically decent housing for everyone, but also to think about how the initiatives, the people can channel into these models, how to have all this experience of even squatting, but kind of self-organization. I think it's very important because it's also about community building, and so and I kind of think can see a lot of this already happening also in this sort of scale in Vienna and Zurich.
Yeah, I think it's important that there are many different ways of co-housing and models, and that it's not one against the other. It's just different solutions for different regions all over Europe, or maybe all over the world. And yeah, we should join actually, because it's the same idea. It's with different surroundings. So I think it's a good idea to come together and occasions like that, actually, to exchange and to really drive it to another level.
You shared some experience of the people living in such a community, and everything seemed just perfect there. But what are the problems that you face when you start such a project? And did you have any bad experience with people that maybe were too much attached to their own car and they just couldn't adapt to such a lifestyle and would just take the whole thing?
Well, yeah. I mean, you have to see it's a lot of work. You invest a lot of your lifetime in such a project. And what the initiator Hans always says, it's important that it's very hard to get in somehow, because you have to contribute a lot, and it's easy to get out. So if people are getting, are not satisfied with the project, it's easy for them to leave. So they don't have to. It's without. They do it for free, so it's not it's their choice, and it shouldn't be something that they have to do. I think that's important, and of course there are conflicts. Not always it's so easy to discuss in such a big group. I would say the planning process is not so much the problem, because then you have this goal, that you have the project and will move in and so on. But living together is a really long journey of discussing and rediscussing things and getting together after conflicts and finding solutions. So I think now living there for 3 years, actually it starts to be, it starts to get interesting, actually.
But you have some problems then?
They have conflicts, but for instance, they organize the conflict management system, how they can deal with these conflicts. I think you learn a lot also on the personal level in such projects, and it's not always easy. You might not always be super happy, but I think it's always worth. That's what I wanted to show. It's important that it's worth the thing, that people really know why they do it and what for they do it, and in the end, under the it should be a positive balance.
Maybe something more about people. You mentioned that association choose the potential residents, and I'm wondering what are those requests that are given, and also who is exactly that association? Does residents also come?
Yeah. I didn't mention that actually it works like a cooperative, but in Vienna it is maybe a bit more complicated than in Switzerland to found a cooperative. So it has cooperative principles, actually, this association, so everybody who lives there is part of the association and has also can determine what the association does. So yeah, so that's how they can contribute to that. And before they enlarged the group, they thought of what kind of group want they be in the end. For instance, they wanted to be intergenerational. They wanted to have different professions and income levels within the group. So the aim was to be a very mixed group. Also to be to have very different aspects of living within the group, so that they have a lively discussion always about what is sustainable, what is important for the community.
I want to hear more about financing for this kind of project. Does the city of Vienna, for these plots, have some special terms in terms of money, how much these plots cost, maybe for this purpose, for this cooperative? I mean, are there special conditions? And is there some special way that this group of people can gather money? I mean, how they actually they put their are they putting their savings at the beginning, or is there some special way to get loans from the banks, maybe for this kind of? Because you said that you cooperate with the developers, and do they contribute the majority of financing, or so this?
So first about the sites. The Wohnprojekt Wien was on a site for subsidized housing. So these sites are very cheap, actually cheaper than on the free market. That's how you can get affordable housing, because nowadays the most important factor in affordability actually is the site, also in Vienna, and the cost for the site. So this is important that the groups that apply now for these reserved sites, they have to deliver a concept, and they make a deal with the city what they do in exchange for the site, also for the city, and so on. So this is the one aspect, and the other about the finance is that people bring their private money. They can bring their private money, but also we have this second part of financing where you can ask other people from outside to give loans to the project, which makes it more affordable. I mean, at the moment, interest rates are very low, so it's not the big problem. The bank finance is not the big problem to keep it affordable, but it can change, and with private loans from other people, it can be, over the long term, be more affordable, I think. Yeah.
Thanks.